Good morning, everybody. This is Spencer Parks, your host of The Spark Show. Welcome to episode 15, and welcome back our co-host, Cameron Collier. Good morning, Cameron.
Good to be here.
Well, we've had a few things kind of shake up the world. Supreme Court has unleashed quite a few rulings in the last few weeks that have turned the tides on several big topics. And I wanted to get your take, first and foremost, on birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court voted in a 5-4 ruling to uphold birthright citizenship, struck down Trump's unlawful executive order, which would not allow for anchor babies or illegal immigrants to have babies and just become citizens right away as they're born on U.S. soil. It's almost like there's some sort of magic dirt in the United States that magically makes you a U.S. citizen nowadays. What are your thoughts?
Brain dead, right? I mean, it just goes completely against just like common sense. But I don't know. I got into this argument, and it's like policy versus precedent. So, you have a double-edged sword when you put a conservative, panel, and conservatives are very concerned with upholding court precedent and not sort of upsetting the apple cart. So that's exactly what I saw. That was my first thought. I was like, okay, well, this has been the law of the land for however long it's been. And the two conservative justices just don't want to upset the precedent. It's has nothing to do with the policy, because if you go to their arguments or their questioning during arguments, they were talking about how they were highlighting the policy implications of, this lunacy. It's obviously there's national security implications. There's social welfare implications, social cohesion implications. So it's just like, okay, it makes no sense. But justices aren't policymakers. They're there to, what's it called? They're there to interpret the law.
And so they actually made a good point. Brett Kavanaugh was one of the justices who came forward and said, we understand you may not agree with this specific ruling, which was more focused on Trump's unlawful executive order, claiming what the law was, where they basically had to interpret that for him to say whether this was a legal move or not. But what Brett Kavanaugh came out and said after is, you just need to either abolish the 14th Amendment, or you need to come up with a constitutional amendment to alter this and do it appropriately and legally through Congress.
Is that all? Just got to get through a constitutional amendment. So you got to get half of Democrats on your side, right?
Yeah, we're gonna need Abraham Lincoln back in the House for this one.
Yeah. The party of illegal immigration is going to stop one of its biggest, moths to the light bulb.
Indeed. You know what's so interesting is because 14th Amendment was ratified back after the Civil War, which would allow for the babies of slaves to become American citizens. And many would argue the Civil War has been long gone. This was the 1800s. And now this amendment does not apply to our modern day immigration policy. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, obviously, there's a modern context, but this is the funny pendulum swing, right? Because one of it's a liberal argument. The liberal argument is, well, history changes and you have to reinterpret these old laws for modern contexts. So that's actually a liberal progressive stance. And now here we are as conservatives going like, hey, we need to interpret from historical modern stance. And well, the reality is there is absolutely historical precedent. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where it's, you got to just bite the bullet. And then, what does it really change? All it reinforces is that this is actually kind of what concerns me, is it now puts more pressure on having an even stronger security state, an even stronger police state with surveillance and knowing who's coming in and out and digital ID and all these sort of implications. So it's like, oh, great. Now you're like, I mean, what are we going to do? Right? Because we have to know who's coming. We got to know, right? So,
Well, we don't want to encourage birth tourism. That's the national security threat, right?
that's the biggest, yeah.
And this doesn't apply just to South Americans, Mexicans, anybody coming from the southern border, coming and trying to have children here just to create anchor babies. This actually applies to Chinese agents who actually, one of the scariest stats is that Chinese have the highest rate of paying for American surrogacy
Mm-hmm.
for them to have babies here.
Yes.
But what happens for a Chinese citizen who pays an American as a surrogate? What happens to the baby when it's born here? Scary scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot at play here, and I don't think that liberals are contemplating all of these scenarios, which could really, like we're saying, create a scary national security threat.
Well, never accuse a liberal of questioning unintended consequences. I don't know. My biggest thing is now it's going to push more surveillance. It's going to push more, lockdown security measures to, understand. But kind of the way I see it, it's like, okay, how do we preserve civil liberties at the same time preserving national security, right? And the best thing I can come up with is a strong border. I mean, like, we need to see ourselves as a walled garden with strict immigration, strict, customs and border enforcement and all that good stuff, and end this porous nonsense. And it's just like, well, if we can either turn the cameras inward or we can turn the cameras outward. And if we have an open porous border, then the cameras are going to be necessarily turned inward.
And what have the liberals not identified as an unintended consequence of this birthright citizenship ruling? Well, I can tell you this right now. The call from conservatives and the Republicans, as of this morning after yesterday's horrific news for the conservatives, is to ramp up deportations.
Yeah.
They want to double down, deport them all, and go harder than you ever saw. You thought Tom Homan was going hard before this? Oh, the new stance, the new strategy from the conservatives is to get the airports filled with deportation flights. I want a flight an hour out of here of illegals. I want to make sure that we finish that border wall. I want to make sure that we increase border security. They want to ensure that if we have illegal aliens here, whether or not you just arrived pregnant or not, that you're getting deported as swiftly and without due process as possible.
I mean, it just kind of melts my brain. I mean, these guys just calm down. You know what I mean? It's embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself. You're so, yeah, you get so triggered. Emotional snowflakes. Like, was I happy about it? No. But it is what it is. I mean, nothing's changed. I mean, it was the law of the land before, so it's not like something is getting upset here, It's not really, the sands are shifting beneath our feet. It's, they're just upholding what already exists. So, I mean.
Well, don't forget, the king did something unlawful, so how dare the king? He made it illegal,
Get at the wall and see what sticks. That's just been the thing. I mean, if you look at the injunctions or whatever it is, the charts, it's just there's been less than a dozen for every single president, and then Trump is 150.
But I was explaining this to one of our liberal friends who was having a complete meltdown on one of our posts the other day that, oh, Trump does illegal this, illegal that, illegal this, all these illegal executive orders. And it's like, okay, dude, but listen, there's a strategy to this. Trump understands that through his executive powers, that he's not going to be imprisoned by writing an executive order that's struck down by a federal judge or the Supreme Court. He's just going to get a slap on the hand. But the point why Trump does this, even though he may know he's pushing the bounds of the law, he knows that it's going to force the hand on the issue, which is why he does it. He wants there to be light brought to these issues. And if no one's going to do it, he'll literally write an illegal executive order, knowing it, and then wait for either the Supreme Court or a federal judge to either uphold it or strike it down.
Well, hey, I thought no one was illegal on stolen land, right?
Ooh.
So is that, can illegality even exist on stolen land? Right? If you're going to go with that argument.
Go march onto the steps of the Supreme Court and scream, baby.
This is another like, okay, well, no room for nuance. It's illegal. You're like, oh, okay, it's illegal. Okay, well, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Is he going down? Is he committing a misdemeanor or is it a felony? 34-time convicted felon for the same crime. It's like, guys, get over yourself. You know, it's just one big masturbation session of all these guys just flatulating over themselves. The way I see it,
Cameron, don't forget, he's a pedophile rapist.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's
and we're
right.
cultists.
Yes.
You can't even get through a conversation without these people spilling the beans.
Yeah. Oh, man. Isn't it mind-numbing? It's just like you're trying to make like an argument on the merits, and it's just like all of a sudden you're just getting hyperbolic nonsense thrown at your face, and you're just like, I mean, it's a tactic, right? You're losing a debate, so it's just like, all right, let's derail this thing, and let's get thrown into the what is that called? What kind of fallacy is that? Red herring? I don't know.
Straw man?
No,
the red herring. Yeah,
is that what it is?
I believe so. Well, what I was gonna say, oh man, I kind of lost my train of thought there as well. Was the oh geez, I'm gonna lose my train of thought. Hello, this is Joe Biden speaking.
Fuck, dude.
It's an early morning. No,
hey, you win some, you lose some. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. See, this is what happens when you start talking shit. All of a sudden, you lose your train of thought and you can't stay academic on the merits of the argument. So
there we go. Back onto the merits. Right when this, all right, I got the regroup thought coming.
There it is.
After,
got the wheels back on the train.
Well, yeah, I had a meltdown myself after the birthright citizenship, ruling, right?
Yeah.
And I got on there on social media. Yeah, dude, I said, abolish the 14th Amendment. Yeah, get them, And then, you know what? I get smacked in the face with reality. They're like, well, there's, like you're saying, there's historical precedent here. And they're like, well, if you're going to make that argument, then say bye-bye to the Second Amendment. And I'm just like, hush, I don't want to argue that right now.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll just take it as it comes and we'll do this the legal and proper way.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's like, it's that weird, tug and pull. And that's a good thing about having a conservative, panel. Right, where you have historical precedent, things aren't going to be upset. You're going to continue, you can actually assume what's going to happen. So I'm not too upset about it. I mean, it is what it is. We'll just move on.
Yeah, well, really quick before we move on to our next Supreme Court ruling, how about Ketanji Brown, Justice Ketanji Brown's response to this ruling and her justification on the merits of why she upheld birthright citizenship? She made an example of Japan, saying that if she committed theft in Japan, that she would be held to their standards of their laws, which inherently would make her, Japanese essentially, or a citizen of Japan or something of that nature, just something completely ludicrous. Like, that's a far stretch for making the merits of this case.
Well, the argument is you're under the jurisdiction thereof, right? So you're within the borders of any given country. But does that make you a citizen because you're subject to their laws? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So it's like, okay, so if I'm in any other country and I break a law, I now have a right to vote in their elections or gain, employment or housing. I don't know. I don't understand it. That's an interesting one. I'd have to look at it, see what her reasoning is, because, everything's taken out of context. Clips are taken out of context. She could have had, the paragraph underneath it or above it, leading into who knows.
She went far and wide on that one.
Let's give the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
Right? There's not enough benefit of the doubt out there, so let's give the benefit of the doubt.
All right, benefit of the doubt. Let's move on to the next one, the one that struck a bad chord with Trump. Supreme Court ruled that they were going to uphold mail-in ballots can be received as long and counted after Election Day, so long as they were postmarked by Election Day. What ludicrous madness. Why can't we have election integrity and just have same-day voting?
Well, that's up to our rhino Republican senators that refuse to pass common sense legislation because they obviously want to enable the cheating because they benefit from it, or their interests benefit from it. Because
Are you siding with the liberals and saying that election fraud occurs on the Republican side as well?
States' rights versus federal rights, and the states have the right to their elections, and you can't impose anything on them. I think, wasn't there something happening with Joe Biden as well, and he wanted to push something, and the conservative argument was exactly this? I don't know. Do you remember that? Does that ring a bell? I'm pretty sure there was something that had to do with this, but I don't know. I guess I should have looked it up before the show, but I don't know. It's the states have their rights, they're their individual republics, and, just whoever's in the White House just can't, dictate to them how to, enact their, voting rules. So
while
that makes
states
sense to me.
do operate and run their elections by the Constitution, the federal government does have a role to play in elections as well, because they do uphold, like the Voting Rights Act and election integrity, in a sense that they create guardrails that the states do need to adhere to.
Yeah.
So there is regulation essentially by the federal government. And this is like what's so interesting is that Trump is always playing with these rules, right?
I mean, this couldn't have played any better into Trump's hand because, okay, well, let's strategically look at what Trump was doing leading into this ruling. He's been hammering the Save America Act, hammering it. I'm not going to sign the housing bill. I'm not going to sign this. You have to do this, putting pressure on the rhinos, and they're just staying strong. Lisa Murkowski up there, absolutely not. Susan Collins, hey, I have a Nazi I'm going against. I can't write this. Is ridiculous. This is a bridge too far. 80% of Americans approve. That's too much. I'm going to really piss off the Nazis. And so you're looking at this, and boom, the ruling comes in, and it just enrages the base. And then it's just like, get it passed, boys. Get it passed. So we'll see. I mean, there is nothing quite like the bubble of Washington, D.C. The rhinos think the reason why Trump got elected is because of them. And MAGA thinks the reason why Trump got elected is because of themselves, not the rhinos. I kind of side with the MAGA guys because the rhinos are just, these dinosaurs that are just in the way. They're like, hold on, we got to uphold the institutions. We have the institutions. I'm an institutionalist, sir. We have to have a filibuster. There's nothing I can do about it.
Wait. Cameron, you identify as MAGA?
I'm a maggot.
A MAGA maggot.
A dirty MAGA maggot.
Dude, these people, they can't.
I know. They're seething, Did you forget history class about what the Nazis did with the Jewish people, depicting them as rats and vermin that needed to be exterminated? That's like the first thing that comes into my head. And, I could call you a Demo-rat. No, but I'm not going to because you're an American that has a different point of view, you fucking psycho.
I think the best part about conservative strategy on opposing Democrats has become just calling them liberals, and how triggering being called a lib has become.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a slur to them, even though it's what they are. You're just calling them what they are. Like, I wish they would just call us conservatives.
Yeah.
You conservatives.
No. We're cons.
Cons.
Right? Cons.
Oh.
Con artists. You're like, I mean, the left can't meme, it's just the dumbest shit you've ever seen.
Yeah, I
They're
was
just like
told
flapping seals.
after advocating for the abolishment of the 14th Amendment,
Oh wait, that's right.
I was
No,
told
that's triggering. You have to do what are the jazz fingers or
silent, snapping of the fingers.
whatever. Massage your nipples.
Oh man, we hate the Constitution apparently on the show. Could you believe that? You know what? Maybe I should just get a framed Constitution and make it the centerpiece of our flag here, above the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm. Hate the Constitution. I mean, it's epithets that they throw out because they're just getting emotionally triggered. It is what it is.
Oh, speaking of emotionally triggered, how about the next SCOTUS ruling on transgender athletes playing
Again, states' rights, right?
in sports?
It's states' rights.
And what happened? What did the
Right.
Supreme Court say? They said that states have a right to choose in their public school education systems or these sports institutions on whether or not, you can determine who plays in what sports based off of biological sex, that there is no discriminatory in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, okay, this whole thing, like, end discrimination, like, what are you talking about? You need discrimination. Like, discrimination is necessary. You don't want bigoted discrimination, but you have to balance. It's like, how do you reduce harm? This is the thing is like, we operate in this world of black and white where it's like, there's a good choice and there's a bad choice. It's like, no, there's not. There's only trade-offs. Some good things, some bad things. And it's like you have to somehow meander your way through just this swamp of shit and shit choices to hopefully reduce as much harm as possible. And I'm sorry, sacrificing my daughter's chances at a scholarship so that someone who identifies as a woman can take that spot from her, that's increasing harm on a protected class, women. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess from the liberal perspective, it's like whoever's the most extreme minority needs to be propped up. I guess I don't know. It's identitarian politics at the end of the day. It's all about my identity, my feelings. It's all about self-worship, and it's like.
Well, I was having a friendly argument in some of our comment section on the show's social media with a friendly liberal who claimed that we're making a 1% issue of the Democrat Party being transgenderism, our main talking point of our platform. And we're like, no, you have made that your main, identity for your party. You have taken the LGBT movement and prioritized this transgender nonsense above everything else, creating this mental gymnastics that everybody does not want to do with you when you keep trying to force it down our throats. Like, that is getting exhausting. So,
dude,
hold on. You said earlier that, this nonsense that you can't caucus with the Democrats because they believe men can get pregnant. Well, one of the liberals chimed in and goes, we don't believe men can get pregnant. Dude, make up your mind. Okay? Tell us what you mean then.
That's obviously a boomer. That's got to be a boomer. Because the Gen Zers, the democratic socialists, absolute, and it is dogma. And if you go against it, they are vicious. They are rabid, vicious dogs. Have you seen the Scott Wiener up in San Francisco?
No.
If you don't know who Scott Wiener is, look up this guy. I mean, it's in the name, He passed or got legislation passed in the state house to reduce, I believe it's the age of consent.
Ooh.
For like homosexual relationships. I know I'm getting, off into the weeds here, but you got to look into it because it's absolutely, it has something to do with that, with like protections. Basically, it's so older men can be with younger men, right? Like 16, 17, something like that. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And let me tell you, and then something about making sure, like protecting trans people or whatever from being put on like a sexual pedophile list and like all sorts of stuff, like reducing, what's it called? Reducing, what is the word, dude? Whatever. Anyways, he's done all this good stuff, right? and goes to a trans parade in San Francisco, and he is just being ravaged by these people. Why? Because he refused to say free Palestine, because he just happens to be a Jew as well. And let me tell you, I mean, in the video, it's kind of wild. The guy is like, I supported everything you did for trans people, and how dare you? You can't stand up for oppressed people. And they're just screaming at him. And you're just like, I mean, this is insane. And okay, so that's
Sorry,
not the
real
rest of the
quick.
country.
FBI San Francisco, can we get somebody to check this guy's hard drives?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, dude. I mean, the guy is, I mean, anyway.
So what
I don't,
about
I don't,
him?
I
I
don't,
mean,
I don't want to get into, attacking the guy's character, but there are definitely some questionable things going on where you're like,
well, it was kind of like during COVID when they were pushing this whole MAPS, minor attracted persons identity,
yes, exactly. And that's exactly
in
what,
lessening sentences or saying that
thank you. Yes.
yes, scary stuff.
Yes, exactly. And so this is what kind of he was advocating for in his community, because he's a gay man, is advocating for these quote unquote protections, and you're like, that's a little spicy, or rotten or putrid.
Well, yeah, it's like, what do these Democrat liberals do? Well, they catch wind that Idaho is re-engaging firing squads for child rapists, and that's pretty close to home. So what do? Squabble, make new laws that make it difficult to prosecute child rapists, get us closer to that age of consent.
Yeah.
Fucking 12 years old, fucking perverts, sick fucks.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's wild, because it's the same thing like Jeffrey Epstein, right? He was a minor attracted person. So should he be afforded the same protections? Or did he needed to first identify as a woman to get those protections, right? So the thing with the Democrat Party and the Democrat Socialists of America is it's like a trend, right? To the extreme positions of just like, I mean, talk about not making any sense. Gays for Palestine. You're like, you do realize these people hate you. They hate who you are. They hate who you stand for. They see you as an abomination against God, and they want to murder you.
Well, no, what's the correlation between Islam and so Muslims and what's it called? The Pride movement, the LGBT community. It's that they do not align with their views whatsoever.
They're minorities.
Yeah. What do they have in common? Violence. They come together because they both love violence. The Muslims see these people will go and burn down cities. And they did during COVID. We literally had mass riots and looting.
Right? You got Muslims and you got Islamists.
Okay.
Right?
So we don't want to generalize Muslims, because not all Muslims are bad. We will acknowledge that. But Islamists, the radical extreme,
the ones that want to push an Islamic law down all of our throats are Islamists. Yes. And they absolutely pose a threat to our society and our values, because we don't have Islamic values. We're not an Islamic nation. And that is what it is. So it's like, it's this weird juxtaposition where you're like, well, they're both minorities, so we want to try to protect minority rights. But then you're like, what happens when the minority rights start to impose themselves on the majority's values and majority's positions? It's like, well, I guess you got to just start pushing back. And it's like, no, absolutely not. You have every right to be here. You have every right to express yourself, equal protections under the law. But that's the line in the sand. You don't get to cross that.
So I wonder if this transgender sports ruling will have any impact on the way that transgender issues are treated in our prisons and jails, because this madness has been going on for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, since all this started becoming pretty mainstream. that we've got these men and women who identify, mostly men identifying as women,
To get
who
into
end
women
up
prisons.
into the women's prison. You're like, oh,
And then
do you really
two
have to
women
think that
impregnated
hard?
themselves. You're like, what?
Do you really have to think that hard as to why a man would do that? Like, really? Just to take advantage of this loophole in the system to not end up in a prison with a bunch of men?
I don't know. I just like I always see it seems to be kind of like a Democrat thing where it's just like they open up this thing because they want to help the smallest percentage, and then it gets exploited. And it's just like you understand why they're doing it, it's like it's out of kindness, and it's like, okay, we want to try to help. And then it's like, well, this is the problem. You have to think about reducing harm. How do you reduce harm? Kind of like this utilitarian perspective. And it's just like, well, you reduced harm for that small percentage, but then you created an incredible amount of harm for this percentage. So it's like, I'm sorry, that's the way it works,
Yeah, it kind of brings me back to the birthright citizenship about how you're talking about, harming, maybe a smaller minority or doing less harm to a smaller minority group, but then doing a greater harm to a larger portion of the country. And I just think that this birthright citizenship ruling really steals the very essence of what it means to be a citizen of the United States.
Well, policy-wise, the biggest thing I think that matters is the voting. I think it's quite interesting, actually, if, we go south of the border down into, South America. I wonder if there's a correlation between us shuttering or the administration shuttering USAID and all of a sudden just a right-wing wave taking over South America. Because if you go and you look back at the trends, it was left wing, left wing, left wing, left wing, left wing. And then all of a sudden we start turning off our foreign money dispenser. And then things start almost like they're more conservative down south. And there was a constituted effort to push left-wing politics on them. I wonder.
Well, all that money would go into all of these ridiculous programs that would be like, propaganda machines that would just, flood these countries, which I'm sorry, like the propaganda machine funded by the United States is going to be very strong. And so these institutions that are being pushed on these, very conservative countries then just get all of these, younger generations to start voting liberal, and not only just voting in these other countries, but it makes the liberal ideologues more powerful because then they have all of this money coming in that they can fight back or maybe rig their elections or squash the opposition, right? If the election doesn't go their way.
Yeah, it's a full court press. That's honestly, that's my conspiracy theory. I think that's exactly what was happening. I think they were rigging elections because it's a hell of a lot easier. And what we see kind of like what the strategy of the NGOs and foreign governments, it's always kind of like a breachhead for our intelligence services, where it's like, oh no, we're just here to give aid. And then you just got the CIA working in the background, doing whatever they're doing. And so you turn off that spigot. The United States was, was funding all of this. Well, the problem is like we still see those efforts happening here in the United States. Well, that's because you have the likes of these, like the American billionaire Chinese guy, lives in Singapore. What is the guy's name? Seville or whatever the fuck his name is. And then you got the guy over here, George Soros. So they still have their money pouring in, pushing, the grassroots, no kings movement and all that nonsense. They all have signs that look the same, and they all have all these crazy resources, and it's just like, or the Antifa riots with all their resources.
Well, you got to love the CIA. They released a statement yesterday, and I guess people had made inquiries to the CIA about whether or not they had influence or any sort of
boyas.
Yeah, going on in our elections domestically. And the CIA goes, we conducted an internal investigation and found that the CIA has not,
we investigated ourselves and we gave ourselves a clean bill of health. We've never done anything sketchy ever.
Thank you, CIA, for the clarity.
Yeah. I mean, Isn't it crazy when you start thinking about like the levels of complexity that are going on, and it's just like, I don't know, when you see these clowns on the internet that are just like, Trump's not doing this enough and that, and you're like, dude, you are literally dealing with the most complicated puzzle that you've ever seen. And it's like you have this bureaucracy of 50 years that has entrenched itself. Oh, wait, that's right. That's another Supreme Court ruling. He gets to fire the heads of all these bureaucratic institutions at will.
with some exceptions.
Well, now it's okay. Yeah, you go ahead. You tell me.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think it was he tried to fire the governor of like the board of this institution, right? But like they said that he couldn't
That's the
fire
Federal Reserve.
Okay,
That's
so
different.
okay, so then go ahead because I wasn't really too read up on this one that you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So this is I'm talking about for like the civil service of like the federal government,
Uh-huh.
right? Because like the whole argument is they need to be separate so that you have this professional, federalized workforce that's not, constantly being churned every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they had passed a law. Maybe it's like the foreign. Oh fuck! I'm gonna mess that one up. Anyways, there's protections for like unionized federal workers and stuff like that. The president can't just fire them. However, the Supreme Court ruled that he can absolutely fire the executives of those offices, basically. And good thing, right? Because now you can so you have these entrenched interests that lean heavily Democrat, because we already know what the voting of Washington, D.C. is and the surrounding areas, because, they live in Virginia and shit like that. So we're pushing them, getting those people out, and then we're getting our people in, and then they can clean house.
Well, it's a good thing because those aren't the
Culture.
institutions. Those aren't the institutions that create checks and balances in the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, no, they almost rule us by agency or law. They make law through agency or whatever the fuck that's called.
and that's my point, is because we expect Trump to be able to do a lot and to move mountains when he has the House, the Senate, and the White House, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's these institutions.
Do you control the workforce? I go, well, sir, here's my hand. Let me sit on it. I've been doing my research, and I found I can't do anything.
Well, if the president is telling you to move, you move.
Well, but the president has no right to fire your ass. You see what I'm saying? So then Trump tries to fire them, and then they bring this lawsuit, and then it takes how long has he been in office for? This happened early in his administration, and now he finally gets the ruling. Yeah, you absolutely can fire this person. So.
Well, that's always what it is, right?
So
It's a stall.
Exactly. It's stalling tactics. And that's the main tactic that they have. And that is why Trump's doing the whole throwing, as much shit on the board and seeing what sticks. And if you look at his success rate, it's something like 30% or something real low. But it doesn't matter because that's just a tactic.
A third of these things you're pressing the hand on.
Yeah,
That's a third of things that wouldn't have ever gotten freaking done.
exactly.
We'll take 30% on these going his way,
Exactly.
because no one else is doing it. No Democrats are doing this.
And no Republicans are doing it either.
No. And so these are things that need to happen. We need the judgment from the Supreme Court on this to be able to move.
Yep.
So this is a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a good thing. And then the last thing I think we need to talk about is the one about money in our elections. I don't know how I felt about that one. It's something about like corporation or political parties being able to not have a cap on their spending for their political candidates. I believe it was something like that. I don't know how I feel about it. Supposedly it helps the conservative cause. But it's still, I'm a little squeamish when it comes to money in politics because obviously, it's like,
Well, I'm squeamish too about corporations having the same voting rights as American citizens, the taxpayers,
yeah,
because corporations are tax-paying organizations. You're just like, yeah, well, with exemptions. Yeah, like the ultimate loopholes, tax loopholes.
Well, okay, they should be afforded one fucking vote then, not unlimited funds to candidates of their choice.
Right.
And then they create the choices for us. You know what I mean? It's what is it? The candidates aren't elected, but they're selected.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the corporations that select for us.
Right.
And it's like, very questionable.
Yeah, money in politics is always going to be one that's up in the air. Really dilutes the American vote, the citizen vote. But that's one that's always going to be a pendulum swinger, right?
Mm-hmm.
But last but not least, there was one last one actually beyond this, and it had to do with geo-tracking and cell phone usage and whether or not the DOJ could use location services to basically track you down without a warrant, which the Supreme Court said, no. You most certainly need a warrant to be invading people's personal privacy, which includes their geo-tracking, their location.
Yeah,
yeah. Which CIA, FBI, we know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get us, Diddy.
NSA.
Yeah, I mean, come on. This is a tale as old as time. And we've heard from CIA operatives and people being interviewed on shows like Tucker's, Tucker Carlson Network, former CIA operatives. I mean, these people tap into everything that has a microphone in it, your car, your phone, your laptop, your iPad, whatever it is. Maybe our microphone's here on the podcast.
Well, it's not connected to the internet because that shit's got batteries.
Yeah, well, so we think.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. I was, at first I was like, shit. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's like, okay, so I kind of like puckered my butthole because my candidate of choice is in office. But then I was like, oh yeah, actually, it's probably a good thing that, just some Tom, Dick, and Harry can't just be investigating just because you're a political opponent.
Yeah.
Because we saw how they weaponized government. So I don't know, maybe that's because what's interesting is some of these, it's like, have you seen like the red states suing Trump's DOJ, and then Trump's DOJ is like, oh shucks, you won, and I was like, yeah, it was a good thing. Thank you for suing us because we didn't agree with that decision. Something about Texas sued over something that Biden's DOJ had put in, and then they got a ruling against it, and the DOJ is just like, oh man, you guys won.
Yeah, I mean, well, we know there's things still going on from back in Biden's administration. It's not necessarily Biden's DOJ anymore, but, the DOJ is almost its own entity. It's not really, owned by any president, but it is at the direction and discretion of the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see with Governor Gavin Newsom right now.
That's what's like so hard about our system is because our bureaucracies lean so heavily left. So it's just like, it's like the assumption, it's exactly what you see with what the liberals say. Oh, you're breaking the laws, you're a felon, you're like all this sort of stuff. So the automatic assumption is that you're a criminal and we're going to find your crimes. And it's like the same thing that they're saying. If we get into power, you're getting impeached, you're like, because you've broken the law how many times? They can never point to what's been broken, but they're damn sure you did it. And you're like, so that's the promise to the American people from the Democrats. Endless investigations because Congress can do nothing else. But that's going to help affordability, I promise.
Well, we will see.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think that I don't know if I'm going to call it progress. I mean, there was some progress. There were some things that needed to happen to let us know how Congress and the presidency needs to move forward now with some of our strategy regarding voting, mail-in process. The transgender athletes issue is a big one that's been kind of dividing the country for a long time now. Now we've got some clarity from SCOTUS on that. Birthright citizenship. Now we know what the strategy needs to be moving forward and how we need to create the new process that's
constitutional amendment.
Yeah. Well,
good fucking luck with that one.
One that's going to serve the American people.
Happening.
We definitely don't want to see this country turn into,
I don't know. Maybe if the Democrats just go full into their whole communist thing, maybe then we'll be able to create, because the Republicans will just be the American party, and then the Democrats will just devolve into the Communist Party, and maybe that's when we'll have a 2/3 majority to be able to have an amendment to the Constitution.
Well, we'll see, and I'm sure there's going to be some movement as we keep moving forward and see what evolves over the next few weeks. But this was episode 15 of The Spark Show. I'm excited to have made it this far. We appreciate everyone following along and listening. We hope that you subscribe, that you download every episode of The Spark Show on your favorite streaming platforms, and that if you have any questions or remarks that you comment in on our Instagram page, Facebook, and YouTube, and we'll be here on the next episode of The Spark Show.
And I'm not afraid for you guys to flame me. I enjoy it. I'm a masochist.
So Cameron's here
I
for
like
all the
hating.
grilling.
I love it.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode of The Spark Show.